Big Mom's house. Big Mama's house. Welcome to Big Mama's house. Big Mama's house. Yeah. Big Mama's house. Welcome to Big Mama's house. Big Mama's house. Yeah.
Welcome back to Big Mama's house, y'all. I am excited to be back with you to discuss chapter 7 of the Sister Wives book called Becoming Sister Wives, the story of an unconventional marriage. Now, some of these middle section chapters called sorority, we've already did chapter 5, which was Mary, and chapter 6 was Janelle, and it is their perspective on not only when they first came into the marriage, but basically it's a generic recap of basically the first 16 years together, or maybe like 20 with Mary. But still, it's like the first, that first decade or so and a half. I tried really hard to keep up with the timelines, but each one is different. So we're just trying to keep everybody's, stories on the same track. So I'm going to try to do that again today. Chapter 7, Christine. The first year of Cody's and my marriage was tough. I realized that I hardly knew the man I married. I don't mean to say that I didn't love him, but he felt like a stranger to me. And I realized that I was completely unsure where I stood with him, which was a terrible and unsettling feeling. Two things. He felt like a stranger to me because you didn't really know him, because you were right. But how can you love a stranger? I mean, you can be committed to them, you can be attracted to them, be excited by them, have a crush on them, sure, but you can't really love a stranger, in my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm willing to admit it if I am. But when she said she was completely unsure where she stood with him, that's like the narrative that runs through this entire book. Everybody's unsure where they stand with Cody. They don't know where they stand with each other, and none of them know how to talk about it. So let's see what Christine's perspective is. She says, in our family, if you had a problem, you just put on a smile and didn't let it show. I never saw my parents try to work through their differences until it was too late. When I married Cody, I ignored any potential problems. Again, honesty, I love that. She knows she just chose to ignore it. She says, if I was naive, it was because I chose to be. Again, a lot of honesty. But again, she was very young, very sheltered. Um, kind of again like the princess, very popular in the church. And having never seen those difficulties, out in the open, how do you know what to look for as far as like the potential problems? I don't know, I'm not sure if she was the main problem at this point in time. And she says, not long after I married Cody, I stopped being able to cover my problems with a smile. I was nervous and insecure. I felt overwhelmed by my new situation. And this is right after Janelle, of course, had her first child, and said, naturally, Cody doted on Logan, but this made me feel insignificant. How could I compete with a firstborn son? So all of these women are insecure, they're unsure, they feel like they lose themselves, and no one's talking about it. And they're all just being completely miserable and unhappy on their own when they could be miserable and unhappy together and maybe actually come together and make it happy. I will never say it enough. Communication is everything. So, at the beginning of their marriage, Christine got her own little cottage and she loved it. And after only 3 months of marriage, she gets pregnant. She says, between my insecurities and my hormones, I was a wreck. I tried talking about my problems with Cody, but I didn't know how to express myself. I didn't have the vocabulary for telling him what was wrong. Very honest, very self-aware at this point anyway. And said Cody didn't know how to listen to me. During our first fight about the fact that I thought he divided his time unfairly between his wives, he just covered his face and wanted it all to go away. He didn't have the emotional tools to deal with the needs of 3 wives. I knew that he felt he had married me too soon. The 4 of us were too young to deal with the situation we'd created. And again, more honesty, they created it, absolutely. And it's really sad that in the midst of all the joy of, having babies and children and those first years, it's really sad that they lost that time to all their individual insecurities, and the lack of support from each other. I am sorry, guys. It is evening time, and Molly May has decided that she just wants to woof and boof at every sound she hears. Do not be surprised if you hear her think she hears Mallow coming home for work for lunch and, getting very, very excited. So beware. Okay. She says, "Well, I enjoyed taking care of Logan. I spent the majority of my first pregnancy down in the dumps. I had lost sight of who I was." Well, there's the trifecta of the OG ladies. All 3 of them are lost. May, please stop. We're trying to talk. Do you have so many thoughts about sister wives that you need to tell us about? Okay, well, you just hang on a minute. She says, "It was harder than I thought it would be. I struggled with my disappointment and frustration that something I thought would be perfect, celestial even, was actually hard work and brought about a certain amount of pain." Yeah. Marriages, friendships, I can't even imagine a sister wife relationship. They all require work over time. I mean, how many times we talked, me and Papa, on our show about like doing date nights or just getting together away from the family, away from the house to just catch up and, be together and have that intimate, alone time. Not intimate as in sexual, but intimate as in just sharing our thoughts and feelings about stuff. And she says, her friend calls her up and says, "You're not the same girl you've always been. Don't change and don't try to be anyone different." And her friend's words really helped her to kind of, get her back on track. Because some people, that's all it takes is a little pep talk like that or a little bit of a reality check. And some people are able to just pull themselves out of it. Other people are not. They require counseling or medication or both or, you know, things that it takes longer for a lot of people than that. That's all I'm saying. Um, and she says, "I was the one who had wanted sister wives more than I'd wanted a husband. It was up to me to enjoy it and make it work." In part, yes. You have to like have a better attitude about it, not let yourself get down and lost and, find your spot, find your niche, the kind of thing. And she says, "I'd always idealized the nature of sister wives. I thought they would be my best friends. But if you want someone to be your best friend, you have to work on the relationship." And as we know from the end of season 17, Christine no longer wants to work on those relationships. I guess she feels that they all had their chance and they blew it. And she's just done with that now. And I kind of don't blame her. I mean, as much as they talk nice things about her, they didn't treat her that way. So, she says, "Over time, I was able to forge close friendships with Mary and Janelle. Mary became my best friend. Janelle and I grew extremely close, but since she is so much more reserved than either Mary or me, our friendship is slightly less dynamic and more practical, which doesn't mean I love her any less than I do my other sister wives." Okay. I don't know if it's the rose-colored glasses. I don't know if she's trying to be nice, but Christine, as you notice, has a completely different take on their relationships than the other 2 ladies do. Mary felt completely isolated and alone and insecure and insignificant. But Janelle had her work and had all these kids, and now, I just don't, their stories are so different. I would love to see what they would say about that now. You know what I mean? Um, and she says, "After my first child was born, she figured out how nice it was to have a sister wife. Um, and the baby helped restore her sense of happiness and joy. And she felt equally important as her sister wives. And I think that's all anybody wants to feel is equal to everyone else. Nobody wants to feel like they're not as important or as valued or as, you know, loved as everyone else. She says, once I'd given birth, I began to lose a tremendous amount of weight. And remember, she was young and had a little bit of baby fat left. And then, a lot of times the hormones of having your first child, it can help you lose a lot of weight really fast. And then she goes on to talk about how money was really tight then. And they went on a little splurge thing and they insisted she buy a new outfit because she looked so good in it. And she says, we'd been moving around a lot since I came into the family. The house was cramped with 4 adults and 3 children in diapers. Cody was miserable at work. So he decided we needed a change, and they left the little bitty town and decided to do the big house in Utah. And she says, since our daughters were born only a few months apart, the relationships between Mary and me began to deepen. Janelle was able to get her career, which had floundered a little in the tiny town of Powell, back on track. I had a part-time job, but most of all, I was a stay-at-home mom. As the other ladies said, once Cody had the job where he wasn't traveling all the time, and basically they were like single mothers the first 10 or so years of their marriages. Um, right before they found the house in Lehigh where they were all able to live together, they lived apart in like most of their marriages. So, um, I wish they had never left that house. Honestly, it makes me sad because they found their rhythm there. And she said, Mary and I share a lot of common interests, such as cooking and crafts. She said, but once we moved, just talking about all the different things they would do together for like holidays and birthdays and Christmas and things. And she said, I'm sorry, guys, hang on. Sorry, I had to have a little pep talk with my buddy about the buffet. Okay. Um, they moved to Utah, and she said, things began to look up. Cody and I began to discover each other. We had the space and the freedom to get to know each other in a deeper way, and we also were able to start having fun. Um, says talking about the family we wanted really cemented our bond and made us remember the love that was the foundation of our marriage. I'm sorry. There was no love at the foundation of your marriage. In fact, he thought you were gross at one point. So, no. No, I think I don't know what his motivation was, but it's very strange. Sorry guys, hold on. Okay, she's home for lunch, so maybe now Molly will get her barking over and done with and let me be. I hope. Okay, so she says, a year after we returned to Utah, both Janelle and I had our second children, and there were 5 kids in diapers in one house. And so Cody had to go on another work trip for 2 weeks, and he picked Christine this time. And it was the first time that she ever got to go on one of these work trips with him for 2 weeks. And she felt special again. She says this trip was a huge turning point in our relationship. It was the first time we had spent so much time alone together, just us and our daughters. And she says, no matter how difficult things became, I was prepared to sing songs of joy the entire way. I loved every minute of the adventure at Cody's side. I had loved Cody since before we were married. Really? Again, a stranger, can you have love there? I don't know. I'm not trying to talk for other people. I just have doubts on that one. But she said, on that trip is when Cody finally and irrefutably decided that he would step in front of a train for me, which is what he told me when we returned home. That trip was our true honeymoon experience. Now I was certain that we were soulmates. 2 questions on that one. One, you're the third wife to say that he was your soulmate. And do you still think so? Do you still think that, despite not being able to work it out and the issues involved, that you guys were soulmates? It's interesting. Okay, and she says, For more than a decade, I had two best friends with whom I had the pleasure of rearing a wonderful household of children. Does she still think so? Is the question. Um, there's lots of stuff coming up here, guys, so bear with me. She says, I prided myself in being there for everyone all the time. My immediate thought was, as a person who always wanted to be there for everyone and do everything for everyone, who is there for her? Did she even think that she needed someone there? Because I guarantee you she did. We all do. And so that kind of had a red flag for me. But let's see where we go. It says one day I realized I was overwhelmed, too stressed out by all that I had taken on. I hadn't noticed, but for a while I'd been unable to give 100% to anything I did. Unintentionally, I just started to let everything slip. And around this time, Cody and I decided to have another baby. Decided. Um, is that really a decision that you make? I mean, do you just not have sex with your wives unless you're trying to procreate? Do you not? I mean, I don't know. Like, seriously, some religions are like that. I get, like, Catholics, you're not, I get that. So, I'm again, the language chosen for a written word, every word matters. So I just have curiosities about that. And while she got pregnant again, and she decided to take time off and just be a mom and stop trying to do it all. And she said, for nearly 15 years, I devoted myself single-mindedly to preserving everyone else's happiness, but now I needed to restore mine. That is very, very, very valid and realistic and relatable, because I think every parent, especially moms, most moms anyway, that I know, that is 100% true. And sometimes you don't even realize it until your kids are grown and you realize, oh my God, you look around and you're like, where did the last 20 years of my life go? The last 25 years of my life go? I've been busy, and it's crazy. But anyway, back to Christine. She says, I mean, and this is where she talks about her horrible, argument with Mary. She says, about a year before I got pregnant with Truly, she had a devastating argument with Mary. For a while, I want to know what that means. How long is this, Christine? For a while, I'd been feeling that she was too tough on my kids. I often felt that she went too far when it came to my children. Often. How often? Every day? How long is a while? Is it only your kids? Why do you feel that way? Um, there are so many questions that, again, they tell you things, but then they gloss right past it, and there's no details, and so you don't get the whole picture. She said, it seemed to me that she was taking her frustrations out on my kids in particular. I let the situation go on too long, and I let my emotions well up. Instead of talking to Mary calmly and explaining what I'd observed her doing and how she might fix her behavior, I exploded. Okay. Again, this is 15 years or so into her marriage with Cody, which means Mary had been with him for almost 20, and they're all finally living together. So it couldn't have been happening maybe for too long, unless, it had been happening while they were doing the babysitting. But I don't know. There's so many questions, you guys. Anyway, my biggest criticism of Christine right here is, okay, if I see someone doing something with my child, okay, that I do not agree with, I am all up in their business. I know what Kool-Aid they drink, what flavor, how much is left in the pitcher, what everything, okay? I will be all in that. And they will understand immediately that is not acceptable. Don't do it again. Or you will not have any interaction with my child. Period. So I don't care how timid you are, how much you don't want to rock the boat, how much you want to keep the waters calm. When it comes to your babies, wake the fuck up, people. You do not wait. Period. Okay? I'm sorry, that gives me very, it's kind of a trigger for me, so Yeah, take care of your children first. Fuck everything else. Um, I agree with Christine. You should not have favorites. And even if she had an issue with Christine, maybe, and was unconsciously or consciously, I don't know, um, being a little bit tougher on Christine's kids, obviously that should not have been allowed to go on at all. And mother or father, the parents, are the ones that decide discipline. You, as the stepmom, alternate mom, other mom, babysitter, whatever you want to call yourself, you don't get the right or have the right to determine that for someone else's child. Period. End of story. Um, and then she should have said something immediately. I'm going to repeat it. You see something, when it comes to your babies, you don't wait. You speak up. Don't give a shit about what anybody else thinks. You don't have to care if you're hurting feelings or if you're ruffling somebody's feathers. Too damn bad. Babies cannot advocate for themselves. It is your job as their parents to do that for them. Period. And okay, because we all know that they were raised in a very strict environment. A lot of times, very strict religious environments have a lot of corporal punishment types of things. Sometimes, a lot of things that people would define as abusive. And if you grew up in that environment and you don't know anything else, or you think that that's the appropriate way to discipline children, she needed, obviously, to be told. Because if maybe she didn't realize how rough she was being, and again, maybe it was a subconscious thing, you know, that she was like maybe targeting the other kids. I don't know. Again, I wasn't there. I don't know what's in her heart. But you can't be angry at someone and blame them if they don't know that they're breaking your rule. Okay? I have a big thing with that. Don't hold something against me for my supposed weakness or my transgression, and then but you didn't tell me it was a rule before I broke it. That's not fair. Okay, I'm sorry about my soapbox, guys. There's just so much going on here. Let's see where we're at. Okay. She says, since I'm afraid of confrontation, I always allow stuff to build up to it's too late. So instead of trying to work it out with Mary, I just shut her out. So you held your tongue voluntarily. You waited however long to talk to someone about how they're treating your small children. So you get all upset and you blow up at her, and now she knows that she evidently made a mistake and was, whatever. And now you just freeze her out. Now, if this was like the first few years they'd been married, I'd be like, okay, she's young, it's new, whatever. But this is like 15 years in, people. This is when she's in her 30s. So, I don't know. Um, she said it made me realize that I've always had superficial relationships with people. I keep people at a distance, and I've never honestly opened up to Mary and Janelle. But a page before, they were her best friends. You know? Who do you talk to and confide in if not your best friends? Maybe she doesn't really know what a best friend is. I mean, and I'm not being mean about that. I'm being very sincere. Like, maybe she doesn't know how best friends are supposed to behave with each other. I don't know. But she said, after our fight, Mary and I stayed out of each other's way. We no longer sought out each other's company to watch movies or just hang out. When circumstances brought us together, we were never openly rude or hostile. We maintained a level of cordiality. The warmth was gone. Well, obviously, I mean, that makes me sad because if nothing else, if they had some sort of even a superficial friendship, that's still something, and it's just sad that that lack of communication is what put a wedge between them. She said it was a slow process of starting to feel comfortable and open and honest together. We had to learn to tell each other immediately when they felt offended by something, which, yes, thank you, yes. She says her relationship with Mary is very important to her. Um, I never saw that, ever. I think she made more of an effort to welcome Robin in in the first season than I ever saw her put any effort with Mary or even Janelle. So I don't know. I don't know. She says, I realized that the only people I'd ever let in were my mother and Cody. And then about a year after the big argument with Mary, they met Robin. And even though I welcomed her into my family, it shook my foundation and left me unsure of whether I could trust Cody's commitment to our marriage. Why? You were a wife coming in and shook up the other two. You tried your best to whatever, I guess, integrate and whatever. You know that there's been issues and everything, but all these years together, I'm not sure why it was a surprise and all of a sudden it shook, made you not have faith in his love. Mm. She said the four of us and had been a nearly perfect unit for almost 16 years of near absolute bliss. No one else is describing it that way, Christine. Okay? You and your beautiful, amazing, lovely rose-colored glasses, you know, I'm glad that that's how you perceived it. I'm glad you didn't feel like that whole almost 16 years was just awful. So I'm glad. She said, I had grown used to being the last wife. She loved being the last wife. Her and Cody had a tremendous relationship, and he was her best friend and closest confidant. Oh gosh. She says, I had never had cause to be jealous of his relationships with my sister wives. So, because basically, Mary's the first wife and all that, and only had one kid, so we're better than her anyway. And then, Janelle is the one he's got the intellectual thing with, and I'm the fun one that, he just gets to be silly with. And then all of a sudden, what's left? The great sex. That's what's left. Hold on. Um, Before they started courting, of course, she was like, of course, this is amazing. And she said, and she like promised her, like, oh, this is going to be amazing. We're going to be best friends and all this stuff. But then when they were courting and got married, um, Christine's reality kicked in, like the other ones did. Exactly like the other ones did. She says, the loving sister wife I'd initially promised her disappeared. I feel guilty for offering something to Robin that I couldn't provide. If I did, it was through no fault of Robin's, but entirely due to my own problems. That's honest, that's real, that's accepting her part in what happened. So that's good. She said Cody and Robin's courtship came at a time of huge personal upheaval. Okay, so at this point, their courtship, Cody and Mary are on the rocks, like ready to divorce kind of thing. Ready, remember? And we know that Janelle didn't worry so much until the wedding happened too. And now the wedding has happened and well, we're almost ready to happen and we're having feelings. Um the personal upheaval. She was pregnant with Truly, which we all know from first season of Sister Wives. And then he started courting and married Robin. And she said, I gave birth to Truly and was suffering from extreme postpartum depression. I never thought I'd feel such a sense of loss and such crippling jealousy. I thought I was better and stronger than that. I really did. The strangest thing is that I had a stronger testimony that Robin should be part of our family than I ever did about whether I should marry Cody myself. Um, and she recognized that Robin was an awesome, special, and wonderful person. Do you still think so? That's what I need to know. Like some of these things that you wrote, and I know it was a decade ago, but do you still feel that way? I need to know. And she said, I know that she and Cody deserved each other, and this is what made it so hard. I could not curtail my own insecurity that Cody was abandoning me for someone else. And what's crazy is that you would think that this would give her insight into her other sister wives who went through the same thing, and that's what caused all of their rocky relationship to begin with. So should be a bonding thing for them, I would think. I don't understand why they're not leaning on each other more at this point. So during Robin and Cody's courtship, it was evident to me how wonderful she and Cody were together and how much in love they were. I felt inconsequential, as if I'd been pushed to the side. It's a horrible feeling when you let someone in, allow him to become the most important person in your world, and then he replaces you. I began to demand more of Cody, which was hard for him. He had started courting Robin, so he had less to give me. He couldn't love me enough or spend enough time with me. Nothing he did satisfied me. I was so panicked about being neglected that I wanted more, more, more. I nagged and I nitpicked. Okay, as much as like all of us ladies, especially those ladies of us that have been married for a minute, um, I get this. Nobody wants to be the naggy, nitpicky wife, but sometimes you have an emotional need, wound, ache, but that you need your spouse, your chosen one, to be there for you. And the fact that Cody has never had the emotional depth to be there for any of his wives or his children about anything is ridiculous. And I don't understand how they say he did all his personal growth and he's such a, more mature and whatever. Bull crap. Bull crap. Okay? Bull crap. She says, during my struggles with postpartum depression and my own issues with making room for a new wife, I had to ask my sister wives to take over some of my duties. You know, and the fact that Mary and Janelle would happily step in, you know, they knew that she had had I don't think they mentioned it in the book here, but I know that Christine had at least one, I think several really bad miscarriages or stillbirths in between the other six kids, and that's why she had Truly in the hospital. Um, that the one that I know she did because it was on the show, because of that fear. So, I get it, and obviously she knew she had said on the show that that was her last baby, and that can be hard for women to come to terms with as well. So I feel for her, and I'm glad that instead of just trying to tough it out and do it all on her own, she did reach out and say, "Hey, sisters, I need a hand." And she said, "I feel a lack of stability in our own relationship. I can only blame myself and my insecurities for this. I will get through this when I have strengthened my relationship with God. This will return my confidence to me. Then all of the jealousy will vanish and everything will fall into place." Of all the examples of plural families I've ever seen, ours is truly the best. That one paragraph about she feels a lack of stability and then it's her fault, and if she were right with God, then it wouldn't be that way. That's nonsense and bullcrap, because God can be your strength, right? He can give you the courage and the wisdom, hopefully, and the patience and the love and the all that to get through situations that are hard. But God can't give you confidence. You have to form some of that for yourself. And when you're married to someone, you need them to be that for you when they're struggling. And the fact that he couldn't, and none of them really, I guess because everyone was so focused on Robin coming in the marriage, and that was like the biggest like bomb that went off at that time. Um, I think poor Christine and having Truly and everything that went on with that, I think she just kind of got forgotten, and that's sad because every birth of a child in a family, especially if it's going to be your last one, it's special and you need a little extra love. But anyway, guys, I'm not trying to cut Christine's story short. It's just because they're all pretty much the same story, just from a different perspective. I'm just trying to like give you guys their personal perspectives on the exact same story, so that you can see how easily I can see that their family went to shit, because especially the lack of communication and the different personalities and the different communication styles and the needs and wants of each one. Wow. Yeah. So guys, I next chapter is Robin. I have a lot to say about Robin and the story in general. Um it might be a little controversial, but I'm gonna give it to you straight. I always do. I'm trying to be fair, but I feel what I feel. So anyway, I hope you guys all come back and finish up this book with us. We're more than halfway done. We're getting towards the last section here. It's very, much shorter than the rest of the book. So come back and see us finish this up with us. Let us know what you're thinking, if I'm hitting the head or if you think I'm way off base. So you guys be safe out there. Buckle your seatbelts, spay and neuter your pets, and please be kind. Bye.